The third episode opens with a recap of the Cringe Squad's mission objectives, which seems a little unnecessary considering it was explained only 2 episodes ago and all 3 of these episodes came out together, but whatever. We also see more of what Caitlin gets from the Curaman Key. A recorded voice of her mother explains that the rise of industry in the fissures has led to the air becoming toxic. It's referred to as the Grey, despite being green, but there are other hairs I'd rather split right now. Kate's mom says that she instructed her people to install a ventilation system because the people of the Undercity deserve to breathe. And now we get another music video. Just gonna have one of these every episode, huh? We see that Caitlin's Cringe Squad has been using the Grey to bolster their advance through the Undercity. In other words, Piltover is using chemical warfare to annihilate threats in the Undercity. This season isn't going to get better, is it? There's just no way this doesn't have massive collateral damage. Look at some of this imagery. It shows lung damage, nosebleeds, skulls. The Grey's depicted as some kind of demonic smoke creature. We saw how it lingered outside of the Gimp Goon's hideout in the last episode. Are the writers huffing anus? I don't buy that Kate would be okay with this, considering how she feels about the Undercity in the first season. And even worse, I don't believe for a second that Vi would go along with this. This stuff chokes the people of the Undercity to death in some cases. Why would you juxtapose the Cringe Squad with the Smoke Demon? Why would Vi just casually put on an enforcer's outfit and gas her people? Ah! Does Jace know about this? What about Mel? What does anybody think about this? I'm begging you! Help! The video also shows that Cringe Squad has killed off the remaining Kim Barons. God, you gassed them and assassinated their leaders? Adolf would be like, God damn it, chill, you psychos. And the music doesn't help it either. Once again, it's peppy rap music over a sequence that shouldn't have it. I ain't afraid to lose a life or 10 if it means I get the win in the end? What the fuck? So yeah, that happens and we see the squad come across the Smeech Goon, upside down over a cloud of gray. God damn it, I thought I was joking when I said that Jinx would floss dance while torturing him. I forgot this happened. This guy could have permanent damage to his organs after this. Fucking hell. The squad get him down and a bunch of dolls that resemble each of them fall from the ceiling. After the opening, they start interrogating the guy. There is this shot of Shield Man consoling Maddie, and I'm reminded that I know virtually nothing about these characters. I don't even know Shield Man's name, or Fishman's. Fishman hasn't even had a line. Am I supposed to care about these people? Because the show has given me almost nothing so far. Why is Maddie even here? Oh, right, the fucking smoke gun. Is Maddie launching gas at people? Anyway, Kate starts threatening the Smeech Goon with her gun, which is a bit much, but Vi has this look like, oh, Caitlin, that's not nice. And I'm just like, fuck off, Vi, you agreed to gas the Undercity. The Goon tells them where to find Jinx, and then we go over to Mbessa's ship. She's having a conversation with a merchant lady. The lady says that she's come to settle a debt, and then she restrains Mbessa and Rictus with spooky magic hands. She says, did you really believe Piltover was beyond our reach? And Mbessa replies, my son is dead. Isn't that enough to sate your bloodlust? Merchant lady says, we know what you're chasing in Piltover. We will not allow it. And Mbessa replies, allow? Thank you. Your visit only confirms my suspicions. Which is a weird thing to say when someone has you trapped with a knife over your head, but it seems that Mbessa looked ahead in the script, because Rictus manages to cast spell debuff. Mbessa stabs the lady, and the lady says, my death means nothing. You should have given up the feud. And Mbessa replies, you have no idea what family means to me. After the lady is dead, Mbessa tells Rictus to triple the guard, because this will have consequences. And that it's time to involve Sallow, or Counselor Wheels. Rictus suggests involving Mel, but Mbessa says that she's safer as an enemy. Rictus says that the merchant lady's disappearance won't go unnoticed for long, and Mbessa says it's worse than that. So, we have a new faction, we have more on Mbessa's motivations, and lots of new magic. I'm certain that the writers will botch all of this in time, but for now I'm just sort of matter-of-factly stating all of this so we have all the info. We go back to Vi and Caitlin, and Vi suggests going after Jinx with just the two of them, because Jinx will have surprises in store for them. Kate aptly points out that that is all the more reason to have the others along. And Vi replies, Jinx would smell their nerves a mile away and find a way to use them against us. Okay, what little I have been given of these characters suggests that they have nerves of steel. Fishman and Shieldman put up a selfless fight against an overwhelming opponent, and Maddie has a smoke gun. There has been nothing to suggest that they would be any worse off than before. Based on what little I've gotten, of course. Did you do this just to have a showdown between the main characters? Someone might point to the fact that Shieldman is injured, but that's not the reason given. Vi goes on to say, my sister is gone. There's only Jinx now. It has to end. I'm sorry about your mother, but everyone else in my life has changed. Promise me you won't change. A rather amusing line, considering the characterizations up to this point, but hey, kissy time. The squad does the splits, and we go over to Counselor Sallow, having a shimmer session. Egads, a furry! Quick, get your flamethrowers! This particular furry has really good hearing, and begins to hide the shimmer when she hears Ambessa coming. You know, a locked door would beat big ears any day, in my opinion. Ambessa sends the furry out, and essentially tells Sallow that he should be keeping more of a low profile due to the prior chaos, and that it's hard enough to prop him up without him being drugged out all the time. And Sallow says that if she was better at propping, he would have better uses for his time than sitting around waiting for an update on Caitlyn's underground escapades. He goes on to say that she's gotten no closer to Jinx, but that doesn't steal the stars from anyone's eyes. Does Piltover know that Kate is gassing the Undercity? Surely the rise in the number of people with their esophagus melted is cause for some concern. Ambessa says that Sallow might be doing better if he hadn't let Kate overpower him in the council meeting. Which, don't fucking remind me of that nonsense. Sallow replies by saying that it's not Caitlyn, but rather the name Kiraman. It bewitches people. Again, not sure how that will go once the truth comes out. Did you hear about the Kiraman girl? She used the gas that her mother locked away to purge the Undercity. Sallow goes on to say that Ambessa should understand. And he's about to say that Mel wouldn't have gotten where she is without the Madada name, but he's cut off because Ambessa grabs him by the chin and says, "Never speak ill of my family," and then drops him to where he smacks his face and has to catch himself. I find it kind of disconcerting, a foreign warlord abusing a Piltover council member and a cripple no less. Which I imagine is kind of the point, but if Ambessa needs him to accomplish her goals, then it might not be the best idea to treat him like this. What's to stop him from expulsing you? If he gets Mel to agree, it would be the majority he needs. Sallow asks Ambessa why she's here, and she says it's time. Rally every house and family with even a small amount of influence. Sallow seems excited by this, but we'll have to wait until we get more on that. Ambessa also brings up the merchant lady, but we cut away before we see the discussion. Sure. We go over to Mel meeting with the furry, who is apparently her spy. See why you don't trust furries? The furry doesn't want to divulge information because Ambessa is too scary, but Mel manages to convince her by putting forward a pretty convincing argument. She says, "No one is expendable, that's what this is all about. Everything with my mother is a calculated risk. I'd love to promise your safety, but I can't make any assurances other than this. If my mother gets what she wants, the whole city will suffer, and right now you're the only one who can stand in her way." The furry explains that they are setting up an announcement to try and take over and put Sallow in the hot seat. What hot seat? I thought Piltover was ruled by the council. Is there a system in time of crisis that allows for a Romanesque dictator? I mean, Jace was arguably in control of the council, but that was because of the influence his technology had over the culture and economy. Maybe Mel should talk to Jace about Ambessa. Or anything, really. They were kind of an item at some point. The furry also gives Mel the shimmer that Sallow was using, something that can be used to discredit him should the time come. The furry goes on to say that even though Ambessa is dangerous, she was also afraid of something. And then the furry disappears. It's almost silly in a way because of how it's framed. Mel looks up at something for almost a literal second and then looks around in shock as the furry is nowhere to be seen. Does the furry have invisibility powers? That last bit aside, this is probably my favorite scene in the whole season. You have some political espionage, you have Mel's convincing speech, you have the leverage on Sallow, and you have some foreboding knowledge that Ambessa is actually afraid of something. I sure do hope it leads somewhere interesting and not cringe. Moving on, we get a quick look at Vi and Kate checking out some broken gas pipes. Oh no, how will you slaughter the Undercity without the gray? Over in Jace's lab, we get a conversation about runes. Jace says Victor had a hypothesis that there may be something called wild runes, patterns that would occur naturally where the border between our world and the Arcane is thin. Are you saying that the Arcane is on its own plane of existence? Echo replies, runes like the ones you use in Hextech. What's the difference between those and wild runes? As he's talking, you see Heimerdinger in the background doing his own thing. Shouldn't Heimerdinger be having this conversation? He has more experience with science and Hextech. Jace tells Echo to pass a tome. Echo complies, and Jace says, I used words you understood to elicit your action. This is Hextech runes. Jace then continues to ask for tomes until Echo gets frustrated and lets out a sigh. Jace compares Echo's sigh to the wild runes, something raw and natural. Most places, wild runes are dormant, but on occasion they leave traces behind. The implication being that in their work with Hextech, Jace and Victor may have caused the Arcane to linger in some places. Heimerdinger says that he has seen miracles from mages many times, but so often they turn to horrors. He presumed that it was due to mankind's turbulent relationship with power, but now he thinks that it may be a property of the Arcane itself. That is to say, the Arcane will destroy things eventually because that is its nature. There is potentially something interesting that you could do with this thematically. The form of Hextech as a tool designed to help people will invariably lead to destruction because at its core is the Arcane, which has the nature of something chaotic. But let's not put the cart before the chickens hatch. It's also worth noting that Heimerdinger is very chill about all of this. Much of the city has Hextech built into it at this point, and if the Arcane is slowly making it less stable, then all of Piltover could be sitting on a time bomb. One of his big motivations for treading carefully with Hextech was that he saw firsthand the destructive power that magic could produce. But all throughout this scene, he is just a goober about all of it, which I suppose is consistent with this new Heimerdinger, but I like the one that took things like this seriously. Jace wonders why they are only now seeing reactions, and why the reactions would be appearing on a tree underground. He suddenly remembers something important, which we will come to shortly. We get another brief shot of Vi and Kate tracking Jinx, and then we go back to Mel. She's talking with her assistant, who says that Salo has recently met privately with several houses. She has also been looking into the death of Mel's brother. She says that whoever killed him knows how to cover their tracks, and that they managed to strip Ambessa of most of her holdings, making her all the more desperate and dangerous. Mel tells the assistant to take the Shimmer to an apothecary, and to check in on the merchant lady Amara. After that, we go back to Jace, taking Echo and Heimerdinger down a very long elevator. At the same time, Vi and Caitlin are approaching Jinx. This next section bounces back and forth a bit, so I'm going to try and clump some scenes together. In the elevator, we learn that the structure around them is a channel that focuses Hextech energy into a precise beam, and at the base of it all is a failsafe in case the Hex gates overload. Once they get to the door, Jace asks Echo how he knows so much about the Hex gates design. Echo says that he read what he could and deduced what he couldn't, which feels like a stretch even for someone who invented hoverboards. But more importantly, this is something to remember going forward. Echo was able to read about and deduce a lot of information about Hextech, which, if someone from the Undercity can do it, someone from Piltover could just as easily, if not more so. Echo complains that an explosion down here could do a lot of damage to the Undercity, and Jace says that they are miles from the main fissures. Echo responds by saying that these are the same ducts that carry water and facilitate air to the Undercity, and that would explain it affecting the tree. Jace and Victor built a failsafe that could explode over the piping that provides clean air and water to the Undercity. No, I'm sorry, no. There is no way that Victor would be okay with potentially crippling the Undercity like this. Hell, Jace and Heimerdinger wouldn't be okay with it. And the fact that it's been in the water long enough to affect the tree means that the people of the Undercity have been poisoned by it as well. All because Jace and Victor were too stupid to think that this would pose a risk to them. It has the potential to explode, man. Anyway, Heimerdinger decides to try and touch some weird goo, but it pulses and puts the three of them in some kind of void. A ball of goo appears, and Jace decides to touch it. Could people in the show just stop trying to touch freaky magical goo? For fuck's sake. The goo decides to do a big floomp, which causes anything powered by a hex crystal to start floomping as well. Furthermore, Jace begins to see visions of his past, and there is a line of Jaces that start looking at each other. By this point, I guessed what they were going with, and I was begging for it not to be the case. They are doing multiverse. Fucking goddamn asshole hack writers. I have seen enough time travel and multiverse stories to make me hate the concepts. It's not that I don't find some of them entertaining, but it almost never makes sense, and is a crutch of many hack writers to pretend that they are more interesting than they actually are. This season is going to do time travel and multiverse, and spoiler, it's even shittier than I could have imagined. So Heimerdinger, Echo, and Jace get turned into abstract art and then vanish. But the retarded doesn't end there, because we still have to talk about the Jinx fight. Vi and Kate come to a big room with a bunch of columns. Jinx has painted moments on them from her childhood with Vi. A bit of psychological warfare. Vi says to Kate, if you see an opening, take the shot. And then Vi goes into the middle of the room and calls out for Jinx. Jinx responds from the shadows and says, guess there really isn't a crack in the earth where you won't find me. Vi asks, what is this place? Jinx goes on to talk about a story that Vander used to tell where there were some miners trapped underground, but a wispy wind woman came to their rescue. And she says, wild what some people will get up to when you choke 'em out. Vi responds by saying, we use the gray to clear the streets to keep people safe. You're so full of shit, Vi. There's just no way innocent people weren't adversely affected by it. And you used it to annihilate the Chem Barons. You've essentially ensured war between Piltover and Zaun, which leads to children watching their parents die, but foresight be damned. Jinx says, never thought my sister would turn Bluebelly. Yeah, it was pretty abrupt and nonsensical. Vi comes back with, never thought mine would orphan kids. Shut the fuck up, Vi. You think the people you killed didn't have families? Christ. Vi says, I'm done blaming myself for your mistakes. Done pretending you're my sister. You killed her. I'm not gonna let you stain her memory anymore. Man, there are so many questions that Vi should be asking. These two haven't had a real chance to have a conversation. I don't think Vi even knows how Jinx feels about almost everything, which kind of makes her speech here feel like a leap. She's gone to Jinx is no longer my sister without exploring the nature of Jinx's behavior. Maybe ask her why she did the stuff she did, instead of just saying a bunch of mean things. It just feels like there should be more to their sisterly bond. Anyway, Jinx comes out of the shadows and says, try and stop me, 'cause no matter what I do, I can't seem to die. Yeah, that's because the writers cream themselves every time they hear the name Jinx. Next, Caitlyn takes the shot, but it turns out it was actually a reflective gong or something. So the only way this reflection works is if Jinx is standing right in front of it. I don't even want to think about it, to be honest. We have so much more stupid to get through. So real Jinx shows up on top of a pillar and Kate goes to take another shot. She actually gets the target lined up, but then Savika steps in front of the gun, because Savika is a retard now. First off, Kate could have just shot and killed her, and secondly, Savika could have used the element of surprise to just kill Kate. This thing is fucked from the get-go. Next, Jinx jumps down and uses her minigun on Vi. Vi uses the gong as a shield against Jinx's bullets. And I know that Caitlyn's bullets are Hextech powered, but I hope you can understand why I find it silly that they just showed a bullet go through it before showing bullets bounce off of it. You know Vi's gloves have a shield, right? You could have used that. So Vi throws the gong at Jinx, and this allows her to get in close and break the minigun. Meanwhile, Kate picks up her gun and is about to shoot Savika. But this is the exact moment that Jace touches the goo sphere, which causes Kate's gun to do a floop. This unbelievably perfect timing just saved Savika. And now Savika has Kate pinned to a wall, which means Kate is dead. Again. Who am I kidding? None of these characters are going to die here. Vi is about to land a killing blow on Jinx, but you guessed it, the gloves do a floop. You didn't have to make it happen right before killing blows. It just makes Savika and Jinx's survival look contrived as fuck. Oh, but that's more dramatic, isn't it? You fucking hacks. So Jinx takes advantage of Vi's situation and aims a rocket launcher at her. Look at how close they are! Why are you stupid, Jinx? How is this something you don't think about when animating this shit? Just use a pistol, you cunt! So Jinx fires and Vi manages to dodge just in time, but the rocket hits a wall near Savika and Kate. Of all the directions it could have been angled, it happens to be the one that saves but doesn't kill. Why is the action in this season so completely and utterly ass? So Jinx is about to fire another rocket, but this time her rocket launcher does a floop and blows up in her face. She's fine, by the way. Also, why wasn't the rocket launcher doing a floop the same time as Vi's gauntlets? Why am I being punished for paying attention? Next, Vi and Jinx get into a scrap, and they have this shot where Jinx finally pulls out her pistol. But also, Vi has Jinx's head in her gauntlet. So, unlike the writers for Season 2, I watched Season 1. I know that those gauntlets can crush stone. So once again, someone should be dead. But have you considered? No, actually? Meanwhile, Caitlyn runs for her gun, but when she picks it up, Savika teleports behind her. I'm not joking. In this shot, Savika is here, but when Kate turns around, nope, she's here. This season keeps trying to cheat me, and I am not fucking having it. Kate's gun starts doing a floop again, and this time she uses it to trigger a reaction of sorts with the scars that Savika has from the explosion in Season 1. I would appreciate this more if it weren't for everything else that happens here. Also, how did Kate know that that would happen? Whatever. Vi keeps punching Jinx with the gauntlets, and I'm starting to wonder what even could kill Jinx. Like, what is the extent of her shimmer powers? She can move super fast, like the shimmer monsters from earlier, so couldn't she just get a quick stab in? But also, Vi was able to eviscerate the monsters with her gauntlets, so one punch should be doing a lot more damage. Should I even be bothering? Kate manages to get up and stumble toward Vi and Jinx, and she gets a shot off that takes out Jinx's middle finger. So I know that she's tired and beaten, but I still feel like she could have done better than this. She nearly had a shot at everything above the torso, and she wasn't that far. Also, a finger? Is that all we are going to lose as a consequence of this fight? Remember when Jinx said, "No matter what I do, I just can't seem to die"? It may as well be a motto for all of these characters. Losing a finger puts Jinx off her game more than any of the punches from Vi, which lets Vi get the definitive upper hand. Vi gets ready for the kill shot, and Jinx says, "Go on, I'm ready. I'm glad it's you." And it's funny to think how I have to fight against my dying emotional investment to remember their relationship from the first season. All of the times in this fight that either of them should be dead makes this brief moment ring hollow. How did we get to a point where Jinx has the opportunity to say this? Well, go back 5 minutes to relive this insanity. Vi goes for the punch, and then little girl jumps between them and points a gun at Vi. If it weren't for the fact that all of this is built on so much nonsense, and that the little girl has had virtually no characterization, this could be a thematically potent payoff. Instead, all I see are the writers constantly shooting guns at Jinx and then jumping in front of the bullets. Kate shoots the gun out of little girl's hand, which, I don't know, maybe shoot Jinx instead? You have the opening. I'm sure some people have arguments for this or that as to her decision, but I'm just so bored of this trash. The kid starts hugging Jinx, but Kate still wants to take the shot. Vi is like, "It's a child," and blocks the shots. Maybe we should use some of the gray on her. Or better yet, pick her up and move her. You could argue that Vi is worried for the kid's emotional state. That is, Vi doesn't want her to watch Jinx get her head blown off. But again, it rings hollow because of how we got here. Anyway, Savika wakes up, because for some reason Kate left her alive. She was efficient enough in killing the other Chem Barons, but whatever. Savika pulls a hidden switch that starts an explosion. It releases a massive gust of wind that throws Kate and Vi out of the room, and blocks the passage back. It also triggers the release of Jinx smoke all over Piltover. So, what was the plan here? How did Jinx and Savika expect not to get injured from this big-ass wind tunnel? Hell, it's a miracle that Kate and Vi survived it. Wind that is strong enough to lift you like this would splatter you on a wall. But Vi was lucky enough to grab Kate and a solid surface. Kate gets up and starts bashing a rock with her rifle. The intention might be that she's taking her frustration out on the painting of Jinx. But you could easily read this as her trying to get back through to get to Jinx, which given the size of the rock is retarded. Vi tries to calm her down, but Kate says, I keep trying to tell myself you're different, but you're not. It's her blood in your veins. I get that Kate is upset here, but this seems kind of a stupid thing to say even for her. After all of the things you two accomplished in the Undercity, all of the people you killed together, you really think protecting a kid makes Vi and Jinx the same? She let you take the shot at the gong. Doesn't that mean anything? Vi says, you're the one acting like her. I don't even know what Vi means. Like, emotionally, or in terms of an obsession or something. I'm lost with this one. Vi grabs Kate's gun, and Kate butts her in the stomach. Vi sits down to have a cry, and I can't help but think about 20 minutes ago when Vi was like, promise you won't change. And then they made out. Now it's punch to the gut and leave you behind. Typical lesbian relationships, am I right, fellas? God, what an absolute mess of a sequence. Now, you may have been tempted to say I'm nitpicking throughout all of this, but my definition of nitpicking is something that is still a problem, but a very small one. The events of this sequence are incredibly consequential, because they allow all of these people to survive over and over again when it shouldn't be possible. Jinx tanks her rocket exploding in her face, for God's sake. Kate just decides not to execute Savika when it would have taken a second and not led to the stupid-ass wind tunnel. The fucking wind tunnel, man. It had enough force behind it to blow up all over Piltover. Do you have any idea the amount of force it would have to project? Kate and Vi were at the source, and ducking behind a slab is enough to hide from it? Fuck off. Moving on, Mel and her assistant are getting assailed by the same magic that attacked Mbessa earlier. The assistant creepily turns her head and says, Black Rose. And then they both disappear. So, if the Black Rose can just teleport you away like this, how has Mbessa not been killed already? The next scene is another council meeting, or what's fucking left of it. Salo says that Mbessa has some news to share. She turns around and, I guess having a plate on the back of your head is one way to keep people's attention. She says that the merchant lady was killed by Zolnite assassins, and suggests enacting martial law and appointing a general to lead until the threat of Zon has been vanquished. She recommends Caitlyn, which comes as a shock to Salo, but Rictus pushes him back in his chair. So, in all of the discussions Salo had with the other families, did it not come up that he should be the one to lead? Would it not at all upset them that the plan was changed abruptly like this? Also, fucking Caitlyn? Are the houses of Piltover so dense that they would let the person who gassed the Undercity lead them? She has easily exasperated the problem. And what political experience does she have? She was little more than a cadet a few months ago. What experience does she have in overseeing military strategy? Heading a fucking strike team is not enough for a resume. What the fuck is going on? All of the Noxians start pounding their chests, and several of the enforcers follow suit. The moment is intercut with scenes from the first episode that show Mbessa orchestrating the attack on the memorial, which I already figured out from the 2-second shot of Mbessa from the first episode. I find it amusing that the writers of this season think I'm the retarded one. Caitlyn walks up and has a cloak put on her, and then she hits her chest in solidarity. And that's the end of the scene. Jesus Christ! What do all of these ruling families think of this? Some 20-something upstart gets to be the dictator of the city? Why not one of the counselors that helped the city thrive for more than a decade? Why not a war general or a commander of the enforcers? Speeches from foreigners and pounding on chests is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not some farcical guerrilla ceremony. You can't expect to wield supreme executive power just because some plate-headed tart put a cape on you. If I went around calling myself dictator because some dusty bent wrapped a scarf around my neck, they'd put me away. Does anyone from the important families who actually lives here have thoughts on this? I'm starting to go loopy from all of this. One last thing to mention is that there is this shot of S.H.I.E.L.D. Man looking upset from all of this, and walking away. What even is his perspective? Fuck, what's his name? I have none of this information from the show, and yet they focus on him like this is some kind of big decision for his character. The members of this squad are such a weird addition to the show. They get enough focus to make you think that they are important, but one hasn't had a line, 2 of them are nameless, and all 3 have had essentially no characterization. Anyway, the episode closes with the mad scientist putting his blood into some sciencey stuff. That in turn feeds into a hulking monstrosity. I'm sure it will lead to a compelling development. What an incredible letdown this entire arc has been, and I do mean incredible. This season was probably my most anticipated media for a long time. I watched the first season close to half a dozen times just because of how much I enjoyed it. It had some flaws, but there were so many exceptional moments that it made me hyper invested in what would come next. This season so far has been nothing short of a disaster. These characters have been out of character ever since their first words spoken. Everything Jace learned from the first season was undone in a single episode, on some of the flimsiest of pretenses. He goes from being the definitive voice of the council to not even being consulted on invasion plans. Then he tells Victor he's quitting the council, despite all of the obvious reasons he shouldn't. He builds hex-tech weapons even though his arc in the first season was about why he shouldn't do that, and it was on the assumption that the Undercity wanted war, even though Jace knows that's not the case. And he built an explosive failsafe on top of the Undercity's water supply? Are you fucking joking? Then we have Violet, a citizen of the Undercity that is characterized as hating the Enforcers for orphaning her. In the space of 1 episode, she is offered and accepts a position on an Enforcer task force, even though it wasn't necessary for her to accomplish her goals, but that's down the list to be honest. What is arguably the most important decision for her character is almost entirely glossed over. And then we have the absolutely batshit insane decision to use chemical warfare on the Undercity. This is the kind of thing that would easily loop back to the first episode of Season 1. The people of the Undercity would be justifiably furious, and Vi would absolutely have this on her mind. And someone might bring up that the task force only used it on the Chem Barons, but even if that is the case, which it doesn't appear to be, you can't tell me that this stuff doesn't have an adverse effect on bystanders. Did you see the way it lingered outside the Gimp Girl hideout? And even if you can't see it, that doesn't mean it won't have lingered in the air. Hell, Jinx was choking on it before it even entered the arcade. Point being that Vi going along with this is just complete character assassination. And then of course we have Caitlyn. It is such a joke how obvious her arc is for these 3 episodes. Oh look, she's getting more unhinged. Her obsession is leading her down a dark path. It's the overtness of it that makes it so laughable. And I've already talked about it, but her disgust of the people from the Undercity makes no sense given her experience from the first season. There is the scene in the council where she says that there are good people in the Undercity as a way of dissuading Jace from invading them. Now she goes so far as to be like, Vi and Jinx have the same blood, so Vi can never change. And it culminates in the baffling decision to have her lead Piltover. And I suppose I should talk about Jinx now. I've wobbled around it long enough. Jinx in the first season was the result of a severely traumatized child getting adopted by an unscrupulous gang leader. Watching Powder's character progress was really a gut-wrenching experience. She tries to use her unique abilities to help her family and ends up killing most of them. And then her sister violently chastises her and seemingly abandons her as a result. The schizophrenia and self-doubt that comes about because of this trauma was expertly portrayed. Jinx was largely characterized as a deeply disturbed and miserable person. It was tragic and felt like such a grounded representation of a psychopath. Season 2 Jinx is a sardonic, quirky, fun-loving narcissist. The show is no longer interested in meaningfully exploring Jinx's trauma. In fact, I feel like it wants to avoid it as much as possible. We don't want psychologically damaged Jinx if we can help it, because that's not as much fun. There will be more evidence for what I'm talking about later on, but I feel like it is important to cover it here so you can keep it in mind moving forward. If I was to try and be generous with it, I would say that the shimmer that she got near the end of Season 1 might have altered her psychology, but it is not presented that way or explored. So as far as I'm concerned, nothing has changed. She should still be struggling immensely with her past. As for some of the other characters, Savika has been relegated to Jinx's sidekick, which one would obviously think was impossible given what Jinx did. But the show wants me to believe that Savika doesn't know the circumstances around Silco's death, which is impossible, and hasn't been addressed in the show because even the writers know this can't happen. Also, Savika's principles have been changed to make this plot happen. We don't give up our own. Fuck off. Heimerdinger has been flanderized into a goofy furball. Victor is Jesus now. So all that's left to ruin is Mel, Echo, and Ambessa, I guess. Although Ambessa instigating the memorial showdown is a problem, because it could have easily gotten Mel killed. And Ambessa is always talking about how much family means to her. And also, recommending Caitlyn to lead the city is stupid, even as a ruse. You know what, let's just give Ambessa some leeway for now. I'm sure her character will make sense by the end. As for the action scenes, my god were they terrible. The stupid decisions characters make are almost non-stop. The plot armor is thicker than your mom, and they all lead to conclusions that are horseshit. Fucking spears and underground hurricanes? And of course the Jinx Savika team-up. We are not even going to bother to compare the finale for Season 1's first arc. My god. When I finished watching these 3 episodes, I seriously considered not continuing with the season. Against my better judgment, I soldiered on. There were some moments where I was able to laugh at the absurdity, but ultimately, you can guess that this doesn't end well.
Were you killed?
Sadly, yes. But I lived.